Hey, hey, good evening, champion parents out there. Welcome back to Mommy Talk.
Woohoo!
I am just feeling really, really blessed. It's just like as the days go by, to me, it just gets better and better. And I'm always talking about how I just feel so blessed to just have children. And they are just like the love of my lives. No matter the screaming, the fussing, what we go through, it's just such a blessing.
That's right.
How you feel?
I agree. I also feel blessed to be a mother, despite of the the fussing and everything else. This is Miss Lisa responding, but I love my children dearly.
Yeah, and through those moments where, we're fussing, we always make it a teachable moment. And we are live in the studio and ready to encourage and inspire positive parental engagement.
Yes, and we are a full house tonight.
We are. We have our children in the house.
Yes.
We have our guest in the house who brought his son with him. Let the children say what's up.
What's up,
What's your name?
Dion?
All right.
What's up,
What's your name?
Kente Jr.?
Did you all hear that? He said his name is Kente Jr. and he said it loud and proud.
Hello, my name is Tiadra.
And that's Tiadra. That's the love of my life. That's Dr. Pert's daughter. And we are sending love and prayers to our co-host, Miss April, who is not in the studio with us. So, wellness check. How was everybody's weekend?
My weekend was really good. Always short. I think that is just the universal statement. It will always be too short. But it was a pretty good weekend, pretty productive. And we're going to jump to ask Mr. Rosser, who is our guest this evening, Mr. Kente Rossner. How was your weekend?
Good evening, everyone. My weekend was pretty good. It was pretty busy. A lot of running around, a lot of business to be handled this past weekend. But all in all, it was pretty good. Like you said, it's too short.
Yes.
It always is. Even if it's a 3-day weekend, it's still too short. But, it's pretty
Weekend
good.
too short.
Yeah.
Too short.
Does it seem like as you get older, time just
Oh,
flies?
yeah, absolutely.
Like, you look up and you be like,
Yeah.
wow, it's back
Absolutely.
Sunday again?
Yeah, it's funny you mention that because when you get older, but even my son this past weekend said he wished it was 80 hours in a day because a lot that we were working on, it just wasn't enough time to get it done. So even from his young perspective, needing more time, which is interesting because
That's
he's
very
so young.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of kids. It seems like they think that days go. I mean, that the time goes on forever, especially when they're in school.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then when it's time for them to leave, they want to linger around.
Hello.
They don't want to go.
They do not.
Yeah, so champion parents out there, did you know that there are only 2% of black male educators in America? And so I want to clarify that. What do we mean by that?
So educators, teachers, administrators, just people in the field of education.
Okay, so we're
Yeah.
strictly talking about male educators who have some type of professional degree in the profession of education.
Absolutely.
Okay, because when I saw that quote, I just started thinking like, wow, there's only 2% black males that's educating our children. But then I thought about our fathers out there who don't get credit for, teaching their children on a daily basis.
Okay.
So I just thought that statistic right there was kind of like, let's bring some clarity to that.
Okay. I definitely can see that because we definitely have a lot of father educators in the home because they obviously teach their children
Yeah.
a lot. They're the first teachers, just as mothers are first teachers.
So getting away from sexist opinions about black male educators in many cases is very important because of the lack of father figures in some households, which is why people make a big deal of black males being educators.
Absolutely. And just getting into today's topic, which is about balancing fatherhood and the work life. And with our awesome guest this evening, Mr. Rosser, he's going to to dig deep into this topic, and it's inspired again, as Dr. Purse said, because of the need of black male educators. And I think I have been one of the ones who have said over the years that having a black male educator in the building with our population of students, that they respond a little differently, and it does not take away from our powerful female educators or just great educators, period. But we know there are some students who respond a little differently to the black male educator. So my first thing is, first of all, champion parents, if you are listening, please give us a call at 313-837-1340. Opinion or question for our guest. So, Mr. Kente Rossner, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah,
Wait,
thank you.
let me do an intro for him. Bada boom, bada bing. Kente Rossner, who is a self-bosser, about to bring the salsa. Hey.
What year did you graduate?
You know what? I've been watching Rhythm and Flow, so I'm trying to.
Okay. Well, hey, well, I appreciate that intro, and I also appreciate being invited to be a guest on the show. I think the topics tonight are very good topics, and right on time. There's a movement that's going on in the state of Michigan and other places as well to try to actively recruit more minorities to the profession, particularly black male educators. That stat is very accurate. 2% of educators are black males across the country. If you work in certain areas, it may not look as though that's accurate. For example, if you work in certain cities or certain urban areas, you may see more black male educators than others. But if you branch out, or if you go beyond the scope of the inner city, you will see that that's a very realistic statistic. And if you look at the College of Educations across the country, or even across the state, you wonder, what the future of the profession will look like, because there aren't very many black males who are even in College of Ed. I'll take my son, for example. I'm not even sure if he has a black teacher, or black male teacher, I should say. And, in certain schools and certain districts, kids can matriculate through the whole system, K through 12, having never had a black male, or if they have, maybe one or two. So that's a very realistic statistic. And one of the things that I've been working on in partnership with a few others, and some of you all may know some of these names I'm going to mention, Quan Nellums being one.
Yes.
You're familiar with the in-demand movement, where he has put together a movement to kind of attract more black males to the profession.
Yes.
And that's on a volunteer basis, at the classroom level, and administrative level, any form of support from black males to be present in the educational system, to be a benefit to the students that we serve.
Absolutely, and I am definitely familiar with Quan Nellums. I actually just shared the post that he, I can't remember who put the post out, but the in-demand movement. I thought that was a really awesome thing, because a lot of Detroit public school teachers were charged with trying to recruit teachers, and if you recruited someone, you could get the stipend or whatnot. But he took it a step further and actually created a whole movement out of it. So that's awesome.
Yeah, if you're, it's funny you gave me the rap introduction, because the in-demand movement part of it is actually a series of rap songs that's obviously geared to appeal to a different demographic, or to recruit more to the profession. And so part of it, I was honored when he reached out to me. I kind of harkened back to my high school days when I used to rap, and I actually laid a verse on the song that was a part of the in-demand movement, and it's getting a lot of traction.
Where is that?
Oh, you can find it on Facebook. Oh, where's the verse?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Not yet?
No,
Okay.
not yet. Once I warm up a little bit. But, that's just one tool. That's one tool to, kind of appeal to different demographics, maybe a younger demographic, maybe appeal to some high school age students to make them interested in this whole teaching profession. It certainly is a calling, and I don't know, when we when other professions actively recruit or appeal to students who are in high school, I'm not even sure if teachers or educators even do the same thing. We teach the kids, but do we ever, try to groom them to say, this actually might be a good profession for you. I see some qualities within you. I see some skills within you that, this might be a good career path for you. So I think we may lose some kids at that turn, graduating from high school, because I don't even know if we, try to appeal to them to want to be in the education profession.
So speaking of, which was my next question to you, so as a black male, why did you choose the field of education?
Very interesting question. Like many, my first major at college was not education. So my first, let me start back a little bit. Graduated from Cass Technical High School.
What year?
Lord.
That's a very important part of any story I tell. Graduated from Cass Technical High School, 1998.
Oh.
Yep. And so when I left Cass, my first stop was to go to Ferris State University. But my major was engineering. It did not quite work out at Ferris State my first year. I did not get kicked out. However, had I returned, I would have been on academic probation. I had a 1.8 GPA, so I decided to come back home. But my grades were not good enough to transfer into Wayne State, so I had to go to community college. So I found myself at Henry Ford, took one class, got a grade high enough to boost my GPA. 6.5 years later, going to school year-round, I graduated with my bachelor's degree. Took a semester off, went back, got my master's degree in administration. And I've taught quite a few places. I've worked in a spectrum of places throughout the educational profession. And, it's not until, I've also worked in places where I didn't really realize how much of a shortage of black male educators there were. I've always, I've tend to work in places to where, the population of black male educators were pretty high. But being familiar with other schools, other communities, other districts, and just the overall stat, I come to realize it is very much so a shortage
Absolutely.
of black male educators.
Yeah. And I think that, I can look back and think about my black male educators that may have been more influential, and some of the reason was because it was a rarity.
Yeah.
Mr. Phelps, wherever he is today, he was my drafting teacher. And
What school?
Durfee Middle School.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, very influential. And I ended up majoring in art, when I went to college. But he was, he just showed me the different aspects of drafting and where it could take
Just think
you.
about how interesting it is. You had drafting in middle school.
Yes.
And, with many districts being forced to take a bare bones
Yeah.
approach to education, the luxury of having a drafting class in middle school is a rarity now. I think back to my middle school days, we had classes like wood shop or home economics. And,
Yes.
the course
Wood
offerings.
shop with Brother Alamisi at Durfee Middle School.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And I actually went to a rival middle school. I went to Winterhalter.
Ah, shoot,
And
yeah, I know all
that's-
about Winter.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I went to Winterhalter from that area, Dexter, Drury Road area, Grand River area, growing up.
NFL. Can I say NFL?
You can say NFL. You can say the acronym. You can't,
Dad can't say the rest,
you
right?
Can't say that. You can't spell it out, though.
Right.
Speaking of Cass Tech, because I went there too, and I think one of the male teachers that had an influence over me was Mathis.
Oh, yeah,
Remember
Mr.
him?
Mathis, math teacher.
Yes, he knew how to teach math and just make you understand it. He broke it down to where it's like you do this, do that. Do you remember that?
I do. I did not have Mr. Mathis, but I do remember the influence he had over the building. But
Yes.
ironically, if I could jump in here, there were a couple of teachers, a lot of teachers at Cass that had a huge impact on me. But one of the teachers that had the greatest impact was not an African American male teacher. It was actually a Caucasian male teacher. For me, it was Mr. Willard, and he taught. It was the graphic arts program. I was in graphic arts in high school. Cass Tech, we had majors or curriculums.
They still do.
Very similar to major in college. So I was in graphic arts, and Mr. Willard, It's really not just what, as we all know as educators, it's really not just what goes on in the classroom, but it's the impact the educator has in addition to the classroom. And Mr. Willer was able to connect with his students on a personal level. You liked him as a person in addition to learning from him as a teacher. That's a quality that transcends any lesson that I could teach you. If I could teach you this textbook lesson, but if it's accompanied by a life lesson, and he had many of those that he taught through graphic arts. But, to get, back to the black male spectrum, one black male teacher who was influential on me was Mr. Tomlin at Cass.
He's actually at CMA
Okay.
right now.
Oh, yeah.
He got me a scholarship to go Alabama State University.
Yep. That's Mr. Tomlin was very influential at the time. I think when I was a 10th grader, I had him for chemistry. He was relatively new in his career, and I can identify with him. You know what I'm saying? I looked up to him. The car he drove, I knew what car he drove. I knew how he dressed. I was like, okay, yeah. Now, and that's kind of one of the things that made me want to be a teacher. Seeing him interact with the students and teach his lessons, and and make those connections as well. So he had a pretty big impact.
And thank you for pointing out even the Caucasian teacher that you had that had a big influence, because it's not that, this topic is just about seeking after, just the black male educator. We just want great influences, period. But we just recognize that there is a lack of, black male educators.
Indeed. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
You got a question, sir?
Why do you think there's only 2% of black males?
Can you speak up one more time, Mr. Dion, into the
Why do
mic?
you think there's only 2% of black male educators?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. A few of my friends and I are actually tackling that question and many like it on Friday. There's this program that I began a few years back called the Think Tank, and we bounce around these topics to bring about solutions to concerns that we know exist in the field of education. And one of the topics that we're discussing on Friday is, why is there such a shortage, or what could we do to help address the shortage, and also why did we get into this profession, and since we're in it, what has made us stick with it, because it's not an easy profession. Long hours, thankless job, a lot of fault, a lot of blame to be tossed around. You won't get rich off this alone, so it's not the most attractive. So that could be a reason why there's such a shortage of black male educators. And again, it could be the access or opportunity. I'm not sure how much we appeal or try to appeal or reach the audience, this younger demographics. When we're asking a kid, what do you want to be when they grow up? They probably don't gravitate towards being a teacher. They probably don't even, as strange as this may sound, they probably don't even see that as an option. They see teachers as people that teach, but maybe not even a career option for them. If you were to host a career day at a school, you're not going to bring in other teachers to address the kids at career day. You're going to be bringing in people from the profession.
Yeah.
So that could play a part in it as well.
Yeah, because I know when I ask students, what is it that you want to be when you grow up, I never hear anybody say teacher. And I think right now, from my experience, my perception is that, you have low morale going around not because of the profession, because of the lack of money that they want to pay for the being an educator. And I don't think you hear any teachers saying, you know what, when you grow up, you should be a teacher. And then when you do hear somebody say that, you hear a rebuttal where they'll say something like, I don't want to deal with these kids, because they recognize, I think that the teens and the children recognize that it's not an easy profession.
Absolutely.
And I think that if they want to attract more people to the field, the first thing they're going to have to do is address pay. What do you think about that?
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, you're good.
Most definitely. A lot of people base their career choice on the projected salary that they're going to make. Now, I will say that a lot of students don't necessarily have a good grasp on how much teachers make, or 10 years into the profession, and if you've climbed the chain or climbed the ladder, how much you can make. So I don't know if that part appeals to them. But as an educator, I think we all would enjoy making more money. I think we all deserve to make more money. So definitely whatever a school or a district or a state can do that would free up capital, that would make it more attractive or appealing to younger people going to the. I mean, let's face it, man. We live in a day and age where a person can probably make more money from their home on their own enterprise ventures legitimately than a first, second, third, fourth year teacher. And I'm talking about potentially a person without even a degree. If you have a trade or a craft that you've perfected with access to, the internet and access to technology, the playing field is way different. So I think all of that impacts the profession overall. And, a kid may not view it as a glamorous profession or a glorious profession, and the noble aspect of it may not appeal to them, and if the money aspect does appeal to them and it's not very lucrative, then we may have lost a potential candidate there.
It's funny when the topic comes about money, and I even remember like years ago when like the teachers were doing the sick outs and stuff like that, and you hear critics speak about well, what about the kids, and as if I think it was the one when DPS went through and they didn't know there would be enough money to pay the teachers. And, basically people were like, well, if you don't know if you can pay me, I'm not going to work. And, so people kind of question the morality, in some cases of teachers. And it's like, but we have to be able to survive. We have kids, we have families. And, in many of our cases, especially mine, being a single mother, I have to make sure that we're taken care of, And, but I think about just we're everything as educators. We are the producers of everybody that's out there.
Yep.
Everybody has had a teacher.
We are, but when teachers are in the forefront in the news and they're always, and you see it all the time, like you said, they're not being paid, teachers are being blamed for this, or you always hear a negative stigma in the news about the education profession.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of the reasons why children also too come to school and say, no, I'm good. I'm good with that, because they're watching the news and sometimes they can tell you better what's going on. You be like, well, oh, okay, so that, huh? Why? Because they're watching the news.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that brings me to, I wanted to ask you a question or a few questions or give you the time to elaborate about the think tank. So from the video that I saw, it was very impressive, just to bring some energy and some positivity, in here, because there are some awesome things. So I hear you, Dr. Pert, loud and clear. So this is me being positive. But there are some positive things about educators that go beyond the job and do things on their own, just as we are doing with Mommy Talk, me, you, and Miss April. And then, so Mr. Rossner, about the think tank, the video that I saw, it was interesting to see those educators and innovators come together and discuss different needs of kids and things that always looking for the next best thing to see what we could do in education to make things better. And then I like the fact that you had individual meetings with them after to discuss their findings. So I'm going to let you elaborate a little bit more on it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so the think tank it's actually transformed. So initially, a few colleagues and I, we always get together and talk about the practice, the profession, and what have you. And so one day we said, this would be a pretty good idea if we were to record this conversation. And so the first one was a few years back. We recorded our typical conversation, and it was like where the barbershop meets the country club. The first one was actually all male educators. And so, again, we always get together and talk anyway, but we put a theme on it. We actually specified 4 topics that we were going to discuss, and we were very solution-oriented. So it wasn't just a round-table discussion. Okay, that's the problem. So what's the solution?
Absolutely.
So everything revolved back to what's the solution. So from there, the think tank evolved, and I created this 7-step process where in no specific order. We identify the problem, we send the topic out for a survey to get people to weigh in, get those survey results back, narrow down the topics to about 4, send them to those who we're going to invite to the table, gather your resources, artifacts, come to the table. We had this conversation, we record it, and then we show that recording to others to get feedback on top of feedback on top of feedback. It's like a meta-analysis, how a meta-analysis is a study of a study, with a think tank is a conversation about a conversation about a conversation, layers on top of layers.
Okay.
So from there, it actually evolved to not just a conversation in a room, which was very linear, 2 hours of a conversation talking about solutions, to an actual documentary, to where I have B-roll to support what this person is saying is a solution, and I come back to meet with this person 6 months later to see how this particular suggested solution actually worked. So what has happened is it has become a blueprint, a playbook, if you will, for educators. So if you, for example, see the think tank and you see 3 or 4 things in it that you want to implement at your school, it's a blueprint for it. You know, community garden is one of the things that's discussed in the think tank. Reduction, alternative to suspensions is another. So innovative ideas, you know, we've come together to talk about. So the think tank is a documentary. It's on YouTube. YouTube channel is The Organic Think Tank. So check it out. Let me know what you think.
Nice. So, champion parents, if you're out there listening, we are getting ready to wrap up. This is your last opportunity to call us, 313-837-1340, and that YouTube station again, Mr. Rossner.
The Organic Think Tank.
The Organic Think Tank.
I just want to say I really enjoyed this conversation, but I do feel that, you know, the field of education is lacking teachers across that's a trend you see across the United States. And I think until, like you say, they make it more attractive and they begin to start paying teachers and then promote the positivity in the media, then that way, you know, we will attract not just African Americans, but other people as well to the field of education.
Absolutely.
And I just want to say out there to our champion fathers out there, you know, you may not be an educator, but we see you, you know, because there are a lot of African American males out there that don't get credit for being the good father that they are. And I just want to let you know, keep on shining.
And so that's a question I have. Last question. I know we have to get ready to wrap up. Mr. Rosser, as a champion father who is obviously a champion educator, a champion principal, how do you do it?
It's a lot. It's a huge balance that has to occur. A lot of work events. Junior goes with me. A lot of back and forth, crisscrossing the metropolitan area to go pick him up from school, get back to the job, supervise a basketball game or what have you. So he's very tolerant of me. I'll use that term. He's very tolerant. He goes, he works with me a lot.
Oh, yeah.
That's a nice way to put it.
It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So do we have any final thoughts from our champion children? Please state your name and your final thought.
Dion.
You got a final thought?
No.
Okay. Best wishes? Any final thoughts, Miss Tiadra? Okay. Any final thoughts, Mr. Kente? I love these children. They're so beautiful. Lastly, do you have a final thought?
No, just thank you all for the opportunity. I love how you're using your platform to further the profession. So thank you.
Amen. That's a blessing to hear you say that. Very honored. Any final thoughts, Dr. Perk?
I just want to tell the champion parents out there to continue to support and love your children.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for tuning in to Mommy Talk Live. Please visit our website at www.mommietalk.com and catch us next week. Same time, same place.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Mommy Talk, the champions of parenting. And remember, you too can be a champion of parenting. Continue to support and love your children. For additional information, you can contact us at info@mommytalk.com or visit our website at www.mommytalk.com. We can also be found via social media Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Mommy Talk Network. Please listen to us every Monday at 7:30 p.m. on WCHB Detroit's Gospel Station.
Come talk to us.